you doing, everybody? Here we go. See, my audio is kicking. My video is kicking as well. Randy Dice, what's up? Consistent, I like it. Do you miss a stream, Randy? I think I see you in almost every one of our streams. Peter, right? For as far as emailing me, sure, of course you can email us. Absolutely, you can email me too. Thanks, Randy. Randy, you're becoming slowly like my online streaming assistant by letting me know that the audio and video is good to go. What's going on, you whiz? Good to see you here again. Thanks for joining me. So Pieter, to answer your question as far as email, this is to all of you, of course. Hold on, I gotta get my mouse over there to the other monitor. By all means, here is my contact information. Would love to hear from you. And there's more people doing this, which I am really excited about. You can reach me also on ZBrush Central. So there's my ZBrush Central. I think what I might start doing here too is start posting some things about, this process. Also, we're streaming in video wise. Let's maybe start putting some images together. I know my man Solomon Blair's been doing that with his streams too. He's been doing streams and then posting them online. Because obviously we're in the middle of this Gremlin project that I'm starting from scratch. In essence, in these streams I'm doing with you guys, I'm starting from the beginning. I'm going to go all the way to the end. So I'm going to show you my thought process and how I'm going about getting him to the point that you're seeing him at right now. So today we're going to talk about what I do to get him to say here. I'm going to show you variations of him. Byron, so many questions. By all means, throw them at us. Or in here too. If you want to throw questions in here, that's what I'm here for. So today's Friday, so I'm going with my studious look. I'm going with the glasses. I'm giving my eyes a break from contacts. I guess I do need them for this. I can read it, but it's a little blurry. What's going up? What's going on? I don't even, EFFLED, F-LED-J? F-LED-J? Where do I get this? Well, this is a one-off. So this particular t-shirt is a one-off. You can't get this t-shirt anywhere. This is a t-shirt that's made specifically when we do our ZBrush Summits. So we do a different one every year. This is one of the t-shirts from the ZBrush Summit. Steve Jubenville, what's going on, my man? It's been a long time. Thanks for joining. God, I don't know what I'm going to be able to show you that you don't already know. But you can buy t-shirts on our website, of course. You can go to our page. So here, I'll pull that up real quick just so you guys can see it. Just so you're all on the same page here. For those who do want apparel, okay, or swagoo or swag, let me show you where you can get that. Hold on one second. Let me get to that area. Let's see. Buy. I'm just going to go right to the page so you guys can see it. And then let me pull it over here to my streaming page. Okay, so there you go. So there's a ZBrush t-shirt right there. There's a black and white one that says ZBrush. It's $15. And there's one with just the Z-Man logo. There's the old Swell bottles for $35, what I'm using right now, which I love. I use it all the time. I'm a big fan of this. But this is where you got to go. It's just pixologic.com. Okay, and there's a swag section. So if you go up here to get ZBrush and go to buy ZBrush, you'll land on this store page. And here at the bottom, there's Pixologic merchandise. If you're intrigued, okay, if that's something that you want, all right, just because you're asking, there you go. Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time, Steve. I will definitely let the family know. Sorry, but I'm having a little quick catch up with my man Steve Jubenville that we've known. Steve, I think it's been like 10 years, if not longer. Yeah, Travis, I like what you're doing. To get this t-shirt, the Highlander Wave battle, let's do it. The dad hat, no, they're not discontinued. We just got to do another run of them. And obviously because of the COVID right now, because of what's going on in the world, they're it's not something that can be made really easily and all that. So that process is on hold right now. Okay, so, and as far as your ZBrush Summit question, I can't say yet what we'll be doing or what's going on. All I can say is, I guess, just keep an eye on our pages, and you'll find out. All right, so again, we're continuing this process. I've already done 2 streams with the Gremlin. Okay, so this is now, I look at sculpting kind of in stages for me, especially when I do hard surface, very much so, and organically. It should be a process, you know, and I really want to emphasize kind of what I'm doing here. So I want to, by the way, I see the question coming through, but yes, I saw the Unreal 5 demo. It's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. It's going to be super exciting for some gaming artists to really experiment with that and have some fun with that. Yes, I have seen it. It's pretty awesome. Steve, I'm glad you're able to join me for the stream for as long as you're able to stay. So Byron, for his questions, okay, so again, back to my Gremlin, I want to go through the process. So as an example, right, this is kind of where I was at from the last stream. This is where I left off in the last stream, right? It was a little bit deep. I didn't start having the rib cage in there, and I didn't start bringing in his belly or anything like that. It's pretty, this is a little bit after the last stream, right? Pretty basic, simple things, okay? And then I started slowly adding elements to this, okay? And then started slowly like rehashing things. You can see the only difference here is just kind of starting to look more at the nose and the mouth. I didn't like how wide the mouth was open, because I'm going to put teeth in here, and we're going to do that in this stream. We're going to plop some teeth in there, because right now he seems a little too happy for me. So there's definitely some things I'm going to go in here and tweak. I will definitely reach out to Daniel Bell to stream again for sure. He does stream today. He streams on Fridays, so he's got his own channel that he's streaming. Don't leave mine though. Come on, stay here with me right now. I don't know. I don't remember what time. I think it's late in the evening, if I remember. So this process is where I'm getting to. So I kind of want to go through how I got to where I'm at right now, right? And I see this as kind of like a stage 2 process. So I see the first stage as this, just kind of, you know, blocking it out, keeping it very simple, making sure my proportions are right? And then, oh, Bradley, it's been a long time, man. Thanks for joining from the UK. And then I go through a process to get to where right now I'm sitting, and I'm still not where I want to be. So this is stage 2 for me. I'm going through and touching every part of the model again and making sure I have everything lined up what I want. So a question just popped through also a little bit ago about what my setup is as far as also my Cintiq. So right now I'm using a Cintiq. I'm not using a tablet. What's up, Mr. Sanson? Okay. So my stylist itself, and this is something I've gotten used to. I even do this when I go into other applications. So for me, this side button, the button that's on the side of your pen, is such an important button, because it's got, in essence, it's 2 buttons, right? So closer down to the bottom, right, is a button, and then up higher, you can click on that as well. So what I've done is obviously doing this is left mouse button click. By default, this button, the bottom portion that's closest to the tip, should be right click. And then I change my top part of that button to middle mouse, actually. And the reason why I've done that is when I go into any other external applications, I actually very rarely now switch to a mouse. I still stay on a pen, even if I go to something like a Keyshot or a Maya. Okay? So no, this is pretty much what I like to do, because me also, in the ZBrush world, I like to use right-click navigation, because when I'm getting in close like this, and you can see how rough he is still right now. It's not super detailed. This is why I'm saying this is kind of like a stage 2. And there's going to be a point here where I go into subdivision levels. And you can see my ears are not even connected at all yet, because I first want to go through the process. You can see I connected the neck. So if you look in the very first one, right, I started wanting to go through that. In fact, I actually saved out a version. I didn't bring in a version with the neck's not connected. That used to be just a cylinder. And I've connected it because I wanted to make sure I was getting the shoulder and the neck proportions right. So at that point, I felt it to do that. Right? So this is what's going to do for you. So the middle mouse button doesn't really work inside of ZBrush. You could use it as a shortcut tap. So if you're talking about the wheel on your mouse, yeah, that's something different that, yeah, we're looking into. Okay. So, Yebo, if you want to make a support ticket too, because there might be some things that we need to talk to you a lot about the navigation. Because on my 4K monitor, I don't get a lag. So there's going to be a lot of questions that we're going to need to ask you. So I would recommend making a support. So I go to support.pixologic.com because there'll be a lot of things that we need to ask you about your system and what you're doing and models and things like that. But as far as navigation, I like to use the right click, but also something some of you might not be aware of that you might want to know of as well is when you guys have models. Right now I don't have a lot of subtools, so I'm just loading something a little bit more subtools. Something for fun that you guys might like to use is down here in the solo mode. Obviously when you click it, you're soloing out the model, but there's the word dynamic in there, which I just turned on. So here, let me turn on. Yeah, it's tough to see because so let me do this. All right. I don't have enough real estate. I can't get to the empty spot down here at the bottom to be able to move this. By the way, these do move. So you see you can actually add more buttons. Right? So this actually does that here, and then it'll do it here. It's like, right? And then this one will also do it. It's just I can't get to the dead space because my resolution's not big enough. Okay, so down here, click on that dynamic. So again, right here. So look down. I know you can barely see it, so I'll show you where it is in the transform, so you guys can see it better here. Right here, the solo. See that word dynamic? You can actually click on that, right? And what that's going to do when you're navigating, this is helpful sometimes if you got a really intense model, you get this. So what that does is when you're navigating, it turns all the visible subtools that have the eyeballs on off temporarily until you're done navigating and pops them all back. So sometimes this can be very useful for you. So I just wanted to also call that out for you as well. But by all means, please make a support ticket and we'll definitely get to you. Processor wise, there isn't one processor that I recommend over another one. When you're going to build a computer, i.e. for something for ZBrush, what I would recommend is to get the best processor you can afford. And I would also get a processor that has growth ability. In essence, don't get like near the bottom of the level. Like try to at least get middle of the pack or a little bit higher. So ZBrush is all about your processor, your RAM, and your hard drive. Those are your three really big key points. Obviously, processor being number 1, RAM number 2, and hard drive number 3, if I had to put them in order. And then all your speeds are relevant and important for that. So if you can get a processor with a lot more gigahertz to it and more threads, the better off you are. The more RAM you have, the better off you are. But you also need to have there's speed involvement with the RAM. Yabo, there is some particular things with Threadripper. What I would recommend for the Threadrippers is there's distinctly something that I would recommend doing that anybody that I've spoken to that had some issues with Threadrippers is doing this. Hold on, let me pull this up really quick. This is the first thing I would recommend to you since you brought up that you have a Threadripper. So in your control panel, and I'm on a Threadripper right now myself. In fact, I'm on a 2990, I think, is what I'm on right now. And I've only got 64 gigs of RAM, and I don't have any lag on this machine. So your power options is what I would recommend coming in here. Number 1, I would probably turn off balanced and put on high performance. That way the operating system isn't balancing the processor for you. That might help a lot. But the big thing is I would go here to change plan settings. Okay, and then change advanced power settings. And then in here, one thing that I'd recommend doing is in the processor power management and the max processor, I've knocked mine down to 90% instead of first at 100%. This is the number 1 thing I'd recommend doing. But I would still say throw a ticket at us, and then we can walk you through some other things, okay? But I wanted to show that since you brought up a Threadripper and anybody else that's doing a Threadripper. So, okay, so going on to this. So it's a great question that came up. Someone just asked how to connect pieces without using Dynamesh, because that's kind of where I might go with ears. So let's use these ears and this head as an example, right? So let's go ahead and I'm just going to clone the head, and let me grab my ears, right? And then in this clone, let's append just the ears. Bing! So now I got just the head piece of him. And in fact, I'm going to use this because I want to use this for measuring anyways. Right? So right now, I've got two pieces, right? The ears is one. So if I turn on transparency, you can see it's way inside of his head, right? How I made these. And I want to connect these without using Dynamesh as an example. Okay? So this is actually really easy to do. The best way to do this is through live booleans. Okay? So you can, there's 3 ways to do that. You can come down here and click on make live booleans. So if I click on this, right, and I click this button, and right now I've got nothing in dynamic subdiv because you can see my meshes are all in Dynamesh mode. I click that button, ZBrush goes through, right, and it's going to make a new tool with everything welded. So then there, everything's welded. So now if you look inside, right, and here I'll go to display properties, bing, right, you can see, bing, sound effects so important. And then there you go. And now what I really love is now that we have something, you see like on this one I don't need live booleans. I switch to Sculptris Pro and I can just even start working on this mesh in here, right? You can start sculpting on this. Let me turn off my samples here, right? And then I can start smoothing out, and then see I can transition this, just this part, and then the beauty is that's the only topology that's being affected. And then as I'm sculpting, you can see I'm sculpting across the surfaces, and I'm good to go now. Now I can get working, get going, and those are all welded, right? And there you go, right? So you could do that, right, is one way to do it. Obviously, if you, let me go back to this guy, all right? I have a folder, right? So I could turn off, in this case, I can turn off, well, I can just keep everything on. And I can just click this right here. And this is why I like using a folder now. I have a Boolean option right here. So I can merge everything down when I want to start sculpting across, like the ears, right? Or when I want to start attaching the head to the body too. So here you got Boolean folder or Boolean with dynamic subdiv. That's what that DS div. I'm not using dynamic subdiv. So I just click on this. And then it's only going to Boolean the folder. Okay? And then it automatically makes the whole new tool. And everything's welded. And if you notice, the folder automatically gets turned off. Everything's turned off. The reason why I like this is very non-destructive in the sense that if I ever want to go back and maybe change something, you know what, after I merge this down, I go, you know what, the ears aren't sitting in the right spot, or I don't like the angle. Our problem now is the ears are attached, right? So when I'm in like stage 1 and stage 2 for me for sculpting, I don't like to weld things together if I don't have to, right? So this is why my ears are not welded right now to the head. I'm not done going through quickly and making sure everything's blocked off. As you can see, the feet need some love yet. Like I would say pretty much from this area down, I still need to tweak that a little bit. And then the hands, I just started putting a little bit of love in. Just find where my knuckles are, landing some bone marks. I'm going to show you what I like to do also to wrap my head around all this to get to this point as well. All right, now, but what I also want to show that's something that's pretty cool is here, let me delete this one and let me turn the folder back on. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to say merge folder. So that's going to do pretty much the same thing that live boolean did, but they're not welded, right? So you can see it's not welded, right? So here, let me give different polygroups to the ears here. Okay, so let me just select this out, grow out the ears, and assign a new polygroup. And you can see I'm able to just select just the head, right? Let me turn off lines. So when we look at polygroups, we're just looking at the colors, right? And then that. And then you can see here my neck. This is what my neck was, a cylinder at one point. And then this was my Z-sphere body, right? And then I started adding more parts down there in the legs. So by polygrouping, you can see kind of even some sectioning that I did to get to where I'm at right now here with him, okay? And then changing your polygroups, because somebody asked, is Control W is the best way, right? So you just hit Control, keep hitting Control W, and it'll keep making a new polygroup for you. All right, and then because my ears are still not connected to the head, I use selection, right? So I selected a portion off, and then I did the Control Shift A, which is in the visibility. You got to grow all. So you can see the shortcut to that is Control Shift A. So that's all I did there was, okay, because I'm in parts, I'm good to go. And again, the reason why I like this is if you guys did want to merge this down, even though this isn't welded yet, and I'm going to show another way to weld actually here in a second. I can switch to say like a brush like this, like move topology, and you can see how big my draw size is. And then when I click, you can see it's only affecting my ears. Then I can say, you know what, I want to affect the head a little bit more, give it a little bit more volume on the top. And you can see that's only the head that's being affected. There's nothing else that's being affected because the head is its own shell. The eyes are their own shell. His ears are his own shell and so forth, right? So this is looking at topology shells in order for me to move around. So I'm a huge fan of working this way. It's so, I can't stress this. It's so important to get that first 20% into your sculpt, making sure those proportions are right, making sure everything is right. Like I'd say his arms still need some love here. I don't think the arms are long enough, especially from the elbow down. If you look at that length, right? So if I grab something like this transpose line and I go from, right? And I go, okay, let's take this and move this over to like that and use this kind of as like a measuring guide. You can see up here in the units, it's like 0.39. So we'll just round that up to like around the 0.4. So let me move this here. And then so you can see this is a little bit more length, right? So now I can use, if I'm going to use this image, you got to remember this, I'm using this image as my guide. Then now I can come over and say, okay, from the shoulder to that. So it's about 0.89, let's say about 0.9. So then from the elbow, right, to the wrist, based upon the reference image that maybe I'm using, there's a ratio there, right? So that one we'll round it up was 0.4 from the shoulder to the elbow. And then from the elbow to the wrist was 4.3, okay? We'll just use those numbers, right? So I need to be a little bit 0.3 more further, right? So looking at this, right, let's just round up to make it simple. It's just where my hand is, right? So 0.9, okay? So I would probably then want this from the elbow to the wrist to be, and you can see it's not even close, right? So definitely my proportions are off on this guy. And this is why I work this way. I want to make sure I'm getting all these proportions right, right? And if you remember from the last stream, what I like to do is use the head also as a guide. But before I do that, the third way of merging everything together, right, is doing this. So going into your gizmo, okay, and I've got a gizmo now here, which is very nice since I'm doing a gremlin. Gizmo. I should have for this one made my gizmo. You know, next stream, maybe I'll make a custom gizmo ZBrush and have gizmo in there. You know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm doing a custom gizmo. Just only during this one though. That'll be funny. Okay, so I'm in the gizmo mode, and right here in the gear, and I click on this. Right here, there's a remesh by union. This is actually amazing. Okay. Yeah, John's right. I've been on such an inception tangent. John, I haven't made what you recommended last stream. I haven't had time. So the remesh by union, okay? So in essence, this is live booleans. So it's just in a deformer. I use this a lot, all the time. I can't tell you how many times I use this. It is so useful for me because the way I work, being non-destructive, right? I can at any point in time merge pieces. So I can merge like 1, 2, or 3 subtools together and then use this, and I click this button and it's going through and then boom. And then I didn't even have to turn on live booleans, right? And then now these are all welded. As you can see, as I smooth across, everything's welded together, right? So to answer that one question, as far as unioning everything together, that's what I do. But I don't do that because you can see my proportions are not right, okay? So that's why I'm saying I'm still not done. I'm almost done with this phase. I'm almost done with this phase where we'll move on and then I'll start welding things together. I'll start doing some remeshing and do that. So hopefully we can get to that part by the end of this stream. Okay, but I want to really talk about how I even got to this part, right? So I started with something like this is where I began the journey, okay? And I started putting some things out. So for me, what was really important and to start laying down foundational parts is I think when I'm doing anything organic, I also think about a bone structure underneath the skin. So there are models that were done of gremlins, okay, that are bone structure. Okay, Thad, go ahead, throw your questions in. So I've loaded some textures in here that you can see are some good bone references, right? Because really, there's some human-esque to it, right? If you look like, you know, they got a scapula, they got a clavicle, they got a rib cage, there's vertebrae, there's a pelvic bone, it's just not as big as ours, ball and socket. It gets obviously very different in the arms, the hands especially, and the feet, especially the feet, right? So that I can think in the hands and the feet, you're starting to get more down reptile, dinosaur, or that's those kind of things I'm going to start looking at. Mark, hello from France. Okay, so me, I wanted to bring not only just say these two images in here, right? I wanted to bring these images in here, and I wanted to use these. So let me just reorganize these, okay? And right now, I want to start looking at, all right, let me start landing. I want to start putting a rib cage in, pelvic bone, and i.e. items like that, right? So I want some guide here for me. So I got to pick an image to use as my main reference like I just did. So then this is going to be my main, this is going to be my main image that I'm going to reference off of as far as, say, proportions go, okay? So I'm going to go with pretty much, I like that guy's proportions, and that's the one I'm going to try and emulate a little bit more, okay? So then I need to use that as the guide for me, okay? The other thing that I'm going to want is I need to look at some bone just imagery, okay? So these are just some images I'm pulling off the internet and looking at this, okay? And then let me grab this one is important to me. I want these two. Okay, and you know what? For me, I'm going to go ahead and click on this paint right here. Okay, I'm just going to move just to the paintbrush just so you get an idea here, right? And what I'm going to do is go with a smaller brush size, right? And then start painting white in spots, right? Oh, I want a little too happy with that. I want a little too happy. Okay, and then if I switch to black though and do this, I can actually mask out. My draw size needs to be a little bit smaller area, so then I can really focus on the ribs and I'm not seeing anything else really that's in my way. And then again now, turn off the paint, right? Oops. And then, so again, I'm clicking on the paint, right? And then going through that process to go through and kind of, that's the same thing I did with this image a stream ago, okay? And no, I'm not using a separate software for references right now. I'm using ZBrush. I'm using Spotlight as my reference, right? That's what I'm using right now, okay? So that's what's going on. And now I can click on this one, and if I wanted to click on paint, do the same thing. And what I'm doing is painting, holding control and dragging. And now when I hit the Z key, you can see those images are there. So it's a little bit better. I kind of like this way. So I don't have all that other part of the image in the background. So I just had images imported. I clicked on it and I hit this little button right here. So when I click on an image, you can see this button becomes alive and you see it says add to spotlight. And that's all I'm using right now. I'm using a spotlight image as my way for a reference. So it comes in very handy. Okay. Cool. Everyone, you got that one? George, you're good to go? Okay, so Saad, let me come back to your questions. Give me 30 minutes here to just start going through my idea process here. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going to the body. Okay, and I'm going to start laying in. I like to use my clay buildup brush, and I'm in Dynamesh mode right now. So in geometry, Dynamesh, and then I'm looking at this rib cage, right? And I'm looking at that image, and I'm saying, okay, I need to put a little volume in this. So I like to use this because I just like the stroke that it's making, and then I'm just lightly pushing it back. I'm not really worried about making it super smooth, but I don't want to be blocking. I mean, I don't want this and then this and just leave that like that. That's distracting to me. I don't like that. Okay, so I want to just start quickly building in some structure, and then looking. You can see how the rib cage starts coming around, right? And then there's my scapula, and then you can see the scapulas are pretty big. Like, that's coming down quite a few vertebrae. As you can see, I started throwing in a scapula part here, right? Just to kind of get that gauge. Now, the thing you got to remember, there's going to be muscles all over that scapula, right? So really, the important part of this is saying, okay, I should have something going from here to here, right? I mark my line like that. And then now looking at my clavicle for him, the clavicle's coming across from that neck, just like us, and coming in meeting wherever that scapula is coming up into play, right? So I probably would want a little bit more of play like this. So I'm going to throw on transparency so my head doesn't get in the way, and just doing something a little bit more like that. Okay, and then my clavicle, you can see it's coming all the way, just like a lot like us, right? You got a spot right there, and then that clavicle should come up and meet in that same area, right? I'm doing this bone structure stuff first because all the muscles are going to relate to that bone structure. And instead of sitting here and going, oh, I need biceps, yes! And I got, yes, biceps. If you do it this way, I've found I make what you call a lumpy sculpt, okay? So, the Leonardo, the folders were released in 2019, so 2 versions ago. So they're in 20. Oh, I sounded like Yoda there. Yes, yes. Right. So this, to me, is a very important step and process. I want to land this right first, okay, and start landing these bony landmarks. Okay. I'm looking at the rib, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ribs, right? In there, we have 12, but to us, the most important rib is the actually the 10th rib, because 11 and 12 are sitting behind. We can't see those as well. Like if I stand up, obviously I'm not gonna pull my shirt up, but this rib right here, this is rib 10, and then 11 and 12 are back here, right? So, and as an artist sense, this is the same kind of thing I'm thinking about, right? I'm thinking about in the human form, and if I grab this little guy right here, this is amazing sculpt by Andrew Cause. As you can see, it's right in front of me. I can pull my arms off, and I used this even when I was sculpting the Gremlin, because some of the bone structure makes sense to human it as well, right? So, and what I mean by that, since this, obviously when Chris Wallace originally made these, and then Rick Baker and his team did Gremlins too, they went with, okay, we gotta have a bone structure here, and the muscles are gonna relate that way. So sculpturally, this is important, very important to me. So I wanna make sure I'm getting where that rib cage would be from all angles and all views, okay? And I'm not worried about muscles at this point. I'm just making sure I get nice proportionate, right? You can see there's a pelvic bone, so I want to maybe add a little bit area for the pelvic region, which then this is going to create the gap for the abs to go in on him, right? So I add a little bit of that in there, and I'm looking for those lines, okay? Now, what's useful for you guys is what I like to do occasionally is come up here and you can move your light around, right? Okay, now, the material you pick becomes important. So if you look, I'm moving my light around and nothing's happening. That's because right now I'm using a matte cap gray material. So honestly, sometimes it's nice to switch to a different material, a standard material. So this is basic material 2 and there's basic material 1. I like basic material 2 because there's specularity already turned on in it. And then when I'm coming up here, right, and I click on this light, you can see things are updating. This will help you guys really catch things that are off, that are not on, right? This is nothing new. This is sculpting. So like clay sculpting, well, you'll have a Luxo lamp over your sculpt, and if you watch prolific clay sculptors, they've got a nice lighting source that they're moving around to either just get light on, so if they're working on something close, right? Or just start, they can visually do this and catch things. We're in the digital world, so we can do that easily, right? The other thing that's going to be really nice to catch this, because this is really important for me working across this process, is I like to make a second light in here sometimes, right? Especially if I'm struggling and I can't quite see what's off with my model. This is stuff I like to do to overcome. And then I click in here. I like using a warm light for my second light, something like that. But this light right here, this is the second one. I like to make it a rim light, like it's like the light sitting behind my Gremlin right now. So when I click on, all you gotta do is this light, you gotta click on it. And then now that's a rim light. So you can see it's shining from the back now. And then see this, believe it or not, helps a lot. I like changing it to a different color too, because then I can really see. And then as I'm rotating, I'm looking for things that might be off. Like you can see that spot is now really standing out a lot more for me, because there is specularity happening, and I'm seeing different lights happen. Right? So, continuing this forward, right? I really want to land that bone structure. So, if we take this, right, and again, switch to our gizmo, and then we hit the Y key for this transpose. If you guys remember the stream from, it was Saturday, right? I want to use the head as also a gauge and a guide. Okay, resetting your lights, you can't reset your lights. So what I would do is I on my system, I save out the default light, right? And then you can just load the default light. But there's no reset button here to reset the lights. So you save out, I would save out the default from ZBrush, and then that's it. And just have that always saved out as that's default ZBrush light, and then you can load it at any time you want. So that's what I would recommend doing to your question, Comics Legend, about the lighting source, okay? Yep, so I want to use this again. So when you hover over the orange circle, you can see it gets kind of wider. That means I can move, right, this. So I would say looking at skeleton image and taking his head, right around, I'd say right around in there, okay, which is 0.6 units. And then I do this and see, okay, how many more units is this image, right? So that he was 0.6, okay, so the head is 0.6, and you can see in the top left here is where I'm looking and getting the units. You can see this says 2. Oh, you guys can't see it. Oh, there you go. Now you can. 2.35. So let's just say 2.4. Okay. So 0.6, right? In this particular image, right? And this is why I'm saying you got to pick an image, right? So let me get my handy dandy calculator out. You know, from this last image, I remember that we were about 4.5 heads, 4.25 heads, right? So from this one, doing this again, we were at what, 2.4 divided by 0.6. So that's about 4, right? So the Gremlins range in head size, 4 to maybe 4.25, 4.5, right? So it's my Gremlin. So maybe I want to have a little fun with the proportions as well, and that'd be perfect. So again, the bone structure is where I'm now laying down. But what I like to do is, again, duplicate this head, right? And I'm going to move this head over. So it's just another head floating there in space. Okay? And I want to have that there. Right? And now I like to use my array mesh. Okay? And you can see the heads pop into place. Right? So this is kind of a visual guide there for me to help out. Now, the thing here with this is this array thing is one subtool, right? But the head I'm actually working on is this one. So the problem we have with this mode, right, is when I go and say switch to MoveBrush and I start really putting in some bone structure and say, okay, the jawline, okay, needs to be a little bit different on this character right now. So I want to start moving the jaw, right? That start to change some proportions, but nothing's happening to this one. So here's something else that you guys can do with Array Mesh, okay? So I'm gonna click on my Array Mesh. Let's just turn it on. Okay, so what I have is this. I'm gonna set this back to 2, right? And I'm gonna say the offset back to 0 in the Y. So in essence, right now I have 2 heads sitting on top of themselves. Okay? And what I'm going to do is again switch to the gizmo, which I'm hitting the W key, W, right, for move. Okay, so I'm switching to the move mode. As you can see the hotkeys for that. That pops my gizmo out, and then I hit Y. Why, you ask? It's that button right there, because I want to switch to the transpose. Welcome back, you whiz. And right now I have transpose on over here in the Array Mesh. I got lock position. I'm going to put lock size as well. So I have, let's say, these top 4 buttons on. I have a repeat 2 on. So here's another way to use Array Mesh besides just doing, hey, make another subtool. And I'm going to show you the benefit of this way. So I'm going to say, okay, let's just move this over, right? And so now I got that head sitting there, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another array to the existing array. So right now I've got one array, which is, okay, it's a head that's being duplicated and moved over. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's append another one, all right? And all that is, if you guys want to see, is it's just copying the first array. So the first array is a head and then a duplicate of a head moved over. And now the second one's saying, just do that again now. And now it's making, so that's why you see 4 heads. But instead of doing this, I'm going to turn on chain. Okay? And the chain is allowing me to mess with this in a different way. So this, I can set my repeats, right? This way, right? And then I can offset this way. Right? So I can have something like that as well. Okay? So I have this head, just the first one is just the head. And now this is the chain. So I probably, let's go 5, because I'm going to make my guy a little bit, I want to go a little bit taller. Something more like this. Right? And now the benefit of this is I got a duplicated head, and then I've got a chain of heads kind of just being replicated on through. Right? So stage 1 is giving me this head, right? And then stage 2 is giving me this head, right? So that's all I'm doing here, okay? I'm not doing anything else, right? And I can turn off the middle head now on stage 1. See this pattern start? See, it's off now. I turned the pattern start to 2. Right? And this one, its pattern is 2. So it's pretty much saying, don't start the pattern until number 3. Right? So in essence, this is what I have now. I'm using this. And the benefit to this for me is I can go to stage 2 and I can kind of move these heads in a different location. But then when I go back, right, and I start sculpting on this original one, right, and I start throwing this in, you can see over here, let me turn this off for now, all these heads are updating. So this is important for myself, because if I start now, again, going back to now the bone structure, okay, I want to start making, you know, this mandible needs to come back a little bit more, and I need to come down, and you can see this bone structure right in here, it's a little extreme. So if you look at this image now, right, a nice close-up of the head, let's say, okay, you can see I should have, okay, there is a bone structure here, zygomatic, right? So that is 100% not accurate right now. So then that's why I would start adding some volume in here and start looking at this bone structure, right? This is so crucial for me in this blocking out, just starting to get now. I had the main proportion set up to my guy. Now I'm going another level deeper, and now I'm trying to set up some major tertiary proportions, i.e., okay, for the bone structure. Oh, Andrew, your boy worked on Gremlins too? Your son? That's awesome. I have an original Gremlins 2 in my office at Pixologic, and then I've got some other fun original Gremlin stuff in my office here and here. That's awesome. Yeah, so this is where, or Byron, you're bringing up a great point. The proportions are not identical, right? In the images I have of the skeleton, in the images I have of that gremlin, because you just got to get general gremlin, right? You're gonna get to a point where people go, okay, I see a gremlin. So I'm using the images of the bones more as just what does the bone structure look like for a gremlin, right? So if you're looking at this is sticking out way too far actually, right? So if this is going to be the bone structure of the mandible, it should be sitting in a little bit more like this, because if you look, that zygomatic, so there's that, it should be in line with that bone. So looking straight on, this bone here, right, which is for us in the human, that's this right through here, right? So this is your zygomatic and your zygomatic arch coming through here. So the gremlin's having the same thing, okay? And then this, okay, I've got that bone structure starting to come through here, and he's got a big peak of bone right coming up through here. And then this is going to be very prominent bone structure in here. And looking right here at his nose, right, there needed to be in here. So see, if you start landing this, you can see my nose was off. So when I originally laid down that nose, the proportion was not right, right? So this is why I'm like, okay, I want to first not get married to landing like structure and points as say like a big mouth or the nose. I use skeletal form first to start landing this, right? Because looking at this, then there should be some buildup of some volume here for the bone for sure, right? And then it comes into him and he needs to breathe, right? Just don't give him water, right? So I start laying down just as if I was making a bone structure. Because then if you look from the side, right, and I happen to have a handy dandy in-hand gremlin, so I can do this, and I can clearly see my lining of this and my eye line here, and I can see that nose definitely is going to be sticking further out on his face, right? So looking down at this, that's going to start making more sense, because now that I have that bone structure right there, when I go to land now and say, okay, this is nice, and now I just go in now to start building that nose up, it's going to naturally just start, coming off his face. Because now I got to start putting the bridge of his nose in like this, and then it starts coming around like this, right? And I'm going to go a little bit more extreme with that. And it definitely needs to come off, redynamize. And you can see the nose is starting to come off the face. And that's what should start naturally be happening, right? So for me, this gap now that I'm getting in here is the gap I should have. Because looking at my gremlin, I need some gap between where the eyes are sitting in space and where the nose is sitting in space. So it's kind of, we call that like a draft. What's the draft angle from above, right? So if you look at my draft angle, is really bad from above, right? So if we go back to where I'm sitting at right now, this is where I started, right? And this is, I'm talking about how I started blocking things out, okay? And then now I want to start looking at the other one, right? So I think it's, there you go, this one, right? So you can see the difference of how much more bone structure I actually had to change, right? So this is where I'm at right now, okay? And then this is where I'm at, right? So you can see structurally I had a long way to go, and I wasn't putting the right bone, right? Because there should be, right? There should be a huge gap in there, because there's his ear canal right there, right? So I had to give room for that ear canal, right? And the original one, there's not a lot of room there. If you look, that's a huge ear canal. So I wasn't putting enough room, right? Because now if I go this and say, I'm going to start throwing that ear canal in there, because then that's where the ears will start connecting, right? And then looking at this, there, right here to here, that ratio is just too tight, right? Because then if I even look at this one that I have from the side, look where the ear's coming in, and then like look at this spacing through here, right? So this to me is just more about, I love having a hand reference and I can catch things like that, and I can turn it and look at this, and then I got a rim light here that I can even just put it in front like a real sculptor would, and look at this, right? So there are all types of references, okay, to go through this, right? So no, I've never used Ryan's tools, no. So that's what I'm doing, okay? I showed how to set up a light and change the color and move that around. Did you miss that part? Can the light control be added to the UI? Yeah, well, it's in the UI. So, yeah, all this can be added to a custom UI. 100%. Yeah, you can rip that out and add it to a custom UI. Yes. 100%. There's even a way that you can actually turn on an interactive lighting. So in the Z plugs here, there's a button called interactive lighting. Right? So you click that, and it actually, I can move my hand. And right now, it moves the selected light. And when you're done, you just tap. And there you go. But that's really about using that in the beginning stages, that interactive light. Okay? So this is where now I'm going to start having to do. I'm going to start going through this, right? Because then this is all going to come down to relevant. I got to start lining all this up, making sure I use my heads as kind of his overall height proportion, okay? As we said before, my arms are off. They're not right, okay? So looking again, this from the shoulder here now that I got that bone structure to the next bone structure in here, right? I'm on an Remesh version, so let me go to the body. Okay, and I'm going to click from here to here. And that's about 0.85, 0.86. Okay, and then now from here to here is 0.6. Right? And again, if I'm going to use, I've decided to use this image as my main image. So I'd say from the bony structure there to bony structure there, we're looking at like a 0.3, right, in units. And then going here to here, I'd say it's about the same. Right, looking at that. So about 0.3, a little bit more than 0.3, right? So again, I'm doing this. So that's a 0.8. And then this you can clearly see is not long enough, right? So I need to add. So here's the easiest way for me to do that. I'm going to throw on symmetry. Okay. I'm going to hold down control and click on this body. I will get now this masking. So this is based upon topology masking. I'm just going to tweak it a little bit more for myself. I like to blur the mask a couple times. And then now this can be used. Think of this as like the bone, right? And now I can just grab this and stretch it, right? You can also stretch this way, right? And get that length in the arms that I need to get, because his arms need to be a little bit longer, right? So you can either click on this circle here and you can see it stretches, but what's not a big fan of that, you can see what's happening to the hands. They're kind of stretching as well, right? So if you do this way, you can see the hands. I'm stretching on the arm, but the hands aren't as getting as much distortion, right? So I could do something like this. And then there you go. I get a little bit more length. And I need to be around, what, that 0.8? And there you go. I'm right around that 0.8 now. So now those arms are better. They're longer. They're what I want, right? If you're looking at the fingers here, they're gonna hit around, right? That first joint on the leg, that second joint from the knee, and then they have another joint, more like looking like an ostrich. Okay? So you can see where my fingers are lining up in that around that same location as well. And I say this proportion's not right yet either, because I did go adjust it. So what I'm doing, that difference between this, okay, when I'm going to establish these proportions right, okay, again, I'm just clicking and dragging out. Instead of just clicking on this and doing this, whee, right, and see that the hands are just getting stretched, right, I am holding the Alt key and then clicking. So what's going on here now is instead of clicking here, when you just click here, this is your pivot point. This, where that very first circular with the the Y, X, Y, Z ones again, that's your pivot point when you just click and drag. If I hold the Alt key and then click on this circle, what that's telling ZBrush to do is actually make that circle my pivot point. So in essence, it's only stretching with the geometry around the circle here, right? So that's why I can land this arm and not distort my hand so much. And there you go. And then that for me is the length I need in his arms, right? This is all so important to me to make sure I'm landing all this stuff correctly, right? I want to make sure I got all that landed and good to go, right? And then having these heads is having me making sure what proportions I have right. Okay, but you can see the head still needs some work and some adjustments through here and then going through here. So now I continue this journey, right? You can see this is a great shot of the clavicles. So I definitely need a little bit of a bone structure up in here. So I'm going to go back to the body in here, okay? And I'm just going to say, give me a little bit of bone structure right there, just a touch. And I like to push it back a little bit. Okay, that's a nice little bone structure right there. I've got the rib cage going well here. If you want to, I like to switch to the DamStandard so you can visually see that a little bit better. So I'll throw a little bit of a sternum in there and just start sculpting, man. Just start landing things. And I'm going rough and quick. I'm not trying to be 100% really accurate. Okay, that's the belly. Definitely want to have some pelvic bone in there. Okay, do I want... Okay, that's a good pelvic bone that's going on in there. Okay, I need an elbow. So marking an elbow right in there. Okay, and the Gremlins' elbows kind of come off a lot. So instead of just being flat like this, they're going to... I don't even know how to show you this visually, right? They're going to come off a little bit, right? If you look at his image, see that they're a little bit more, in essence, this needs to be built up more, right? So a brush that's nice also for bony landmarks is actually the H polish. I really like using this brush to, instead of just doing this, right? This is why I like it. You see that? That is visually very representative of where that bone's going to be, right? So if I come in here and throw that in that sternum part, you can see that, and then throw a clavicle, that makes kind of that mark land a little bit, okay? But what I like to do, especially since this elbow's coming off, right? I like to do this. And so what I'm doing is adding volume, right? And you can see that's coming off, right? So now I can say from here, I can also, let's for now turn off my array mesh. So we're just looking at that. And what I'm doing is going from here, right, to here, and adding that's what I want this build up right through here, right? And you can see I'm adding volume, and I'll read Dynamesh. And this is why I'm still in Dynamesh mode, because I still need to block out the proportions correctly and making sure I'm getting that bone structure that I need, okay? And what I like to do is switch between the ClayBuildUp and this H polish. And what I'm doing is I'm holding the Alt key with H polish, and that's pulling on the surface, but it's pulling it flat. That's the big difference, right? That's why that mark, that's a great bony landmark for me. Because you guys got to remember, I'm going to push this back a little bit, and then we're going to start sculpting. So you can see there's that bone structure starting to kick into play now. Okay, and then I can continue now this process down the line. This is going to be so important for me, because when we now go on to the next part here, once I start landing more bone structure, I'm going to start landing then some muscle structure, right? I'm not going to do every part of him, but you can see what I'm in my process of thinking here, right? And this bone's pretty big down here. I need to put a little bit more bone in there, and I like to use the ClayBuildUp. I'm looking at that bone right there, to fall that up to the joint. Okay, so just kind of land that a little bit. I've already started to put a little bit of muscle in there, right? And so this is he's got to bend his leg just like us through there, right? So there's a bone inside there leading up into that. So I'm just going through this process right now, and I'm looking at parts. So when I start getting into the hands, I start blocking out the knuckles, right? Because that's really going to be visually right? Our hands, even our hands, there's really not that many muscles in our hands, right? It's all ligaments and tendons in our hands. Like, you got some muscle here, you got some muscle in here. That's really it. Like, there are no actual real, like, in your fingers and your tips, right? There's not that much. It's really more ligaments and tendons. So that means it's really bony, right? Because you can even, when you guys do that with your hand, right, you can see your bone structure. So I like to do that in my sculpts. I like to just land some bone structure first through here and just making sure I do this. And this is why I also like to use this H polish. It is so great to be able to bing, throw it in bing, a little bing in there, a little boop, 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 right? And just throw in there, right? And this is all I'm doing for my hands. I just want to start landing some structure, and then I come into here and I start pushing this back to land the palm, and then there needs to be, I need some volume here. So I'm just gonna go, obviously I don't have a reference of a gremlin's hand really well, so I'm just gonna use human anatomy, because the hand's still relatively, and then I'll start guiding now as I get to the fingertips. That's when I'll switch to maybe something else like a reptile in there, and start looking at this in a different way. So re-dynamesh this and start just making it so I can visually see even where his fingers would have a bend. Now, I don't have my Dynamesh resolution turned up very high. This is something where a lot of you might go, oh, I need it to look real good. You don't, because look, if I pull away, I can start seeing some things happening there in the hands. Try not to start getting over here and jumping your resolution up. Okay? I myself, I tend to like to try and stay relatively low as much as I can. Right? So this is my process as it goes. You guys can start seeing he's starting to come alive. He's getting a little more volume in it, right? And then this is maybe I would move topological, because maybe if I want to, you know what, my guy, I want to put a little more rib in him. Yeah, he's gonna be a little more ribby. You got a little more rib in there. Bring that chest out a little bit more. Just a touch more. Yeah, there, like that. Because I got to build some muscles yet, structure. Give him a little bit more belly. You know, I want his thighs to have a little more volume. But don't get too crazy, right? Pulling this, because I'm still in the bone phase. Now, let's just use, say, by the delts and by the pectoralis area. Okay, let's just drop some muscles in there. Like, I don't know of any images right now that show the muscular structure of a gremlin. That's okay. Since pretty much the torso is literally laying out like a human, right? I've got vertebrae like a human. I got scapula. I've got a clavicle. I've got a rib cage. Everything's ball and socket at the joints, just like us, right? At the hip and at the shoulders. And then we got a hinge joint at right here, right? We got a hinge joint at his knee. That's pretty much the same thing as a human being, okay? So I'm just going to go with, okay, as a human, when I now go into delt, I can see my bone structure. And this is why I like to do this, because this is the biggest thing I see sometimes with people. They don't land a bone structure, and then you guys start trying to, oh, I'm just going to just bulk up the shoulders, make them burn. And then it starts getting blobby, like the shoulders start getting, like, almost like it looks like there's balloons, right? I'm sure you guys have all had this, because I personally had this. And this is why I sculpt this way. You get like this. Okay, then I'm going to put in some biceps. Right, and he starts just looking like balloony, like that. It's like he's gonna float away. Ah. Okay, so I want to land the bone structure, because then I really love switching to ClayBuildUp, because then I start landing a muscle, and the muscles, if we land this guy, I pull this arm off. Whoop, this is why you guys gotta have references all over the place. Right? If you look at this, okay, the way that our delt muscles are connecting to our body, in essence, the origin section point, is along the scapula and then the clavicle, right? That is what's going to start making something look a little bit muscular. So a great book for me, a reference book for me, and I think everyone as an artist should have this, okay? I think it's a must, is this book right here. This is probably one of the best anatomy books in my years of sculpting that I've come across. And this is Elliot Goldfinger's book, okay, which is Human Anatomy for Artists. He does a really great job of breaking things down. And here, let me get to a page that shows something way cooler. I'll pull it up online too so you guys can see better. Look what he's doing, right? He went crazy to the point where he broke down, okay, here's the skeletal portion, right? This is skeleton, right? And then here are all how are some of the muscles, and then here are the muscles, and then there's an image of a person so you guys can visually see it. So let me pull it up online because that's really tough to see in a webcam. Let me get my mouse over here. Give me 1 sec. Let me just pull it up so you guys can see it. If someone else here, I can share your Amazon link too. So this is it, right? This is the book. This book is awesome. Let's see if we can get an image in here. A lot of copy. Yeah, Amazon's not doing a good job of showing us good images inside the book. Let me go, not Amazon. Here you go. Okay, so here's a great image. See, look at that. Right? Guys, everything's going to land in it. If you're ever trying to do something muscular, it's all going to work, right? See, if you're landing the bone structure, all the muscles are connecting into the bones. So for me, that is so important to just quickly land some bone, right? And all the muscles are going to work. So if you look, the delt is going around our clavicle, right? So going back to Mr. Gremlin here, I've laid down a clavicle and a scapula. So now I know this muscle should come right around here, and it stops here. It doesn't go all the way down the clavicle. And then now I just start building up a shoulder this way, and then it's going to come down the scapula, and it's going to go about that far, right? You would use a reference and see me. I'm looking at my Andrew Kaz. It's going pretty far down, all the way down like this. It's going all the way down. And then this muscle is starting to come through here and break into down, and then going to come down the arm. Because the delt is allowing us to lift, right? Every muscle is only pulling, right? So you need muscles to lift the arm, then bring the arms down, right? Lift and up. It's just like when you guys go to lift your arm out, you're going to make a bicep. Your bicep's pulling everything together, right? It's pulling on that arm. And then I need something to do this. That's where your triceps. So when it's like this, your triceps now are like that. And when you want to bring the arm down, now the triceps fire. And like, all right, I'm going to pull. Right? So you got to, this is why I like to do this. It's just, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you can do anything a little, even if you don't want to embrace everything I'm saying here, if you can just slightly do this, I'm telling you right now, you're going to make things, especially when you're trying to do something that has a little bit more muscularity to it, it's going to just work. You're not going to have to do much figuring out. Muscles are just going to appear out of nowhere, right? So quickly blocking that out. And so what I mean by that, as I move along and I start landing now the pecs and I'll put muscles, if you guys all like lift your arms right in here, right, you're going to be able to feel where you can kind of poke your finger in there, right? Because the delt's here and then the pectoralis is here. So there's a hole right there where there's not a lot of muscle. You can kind of see right now, that's already starting to happen right there in my Gremlin. And I'm talking about this area right here. Right? So instead of me just trying to, I'll just sculpt that negative and do that. Okay? I don't do that approach yet. I do, okay, let me just start really landing some muscle form in here, right? And don't forget that his shoulders are also going to get some very cool sculptural element. So I don't want to go too crazy and too big, because then it's just going to be a little off too much, because I'm still going to be adding more volume to this. I just want to start getting a little bit more structural element in there. And then now I come down here, right? And I'm going to say I need to connect some pecs, right? Well, our pecs will connect into the arm. So I need to then start pulling from the arm some pectoralis, and then now it branches out like so. Right? And I'm looking for major bone, major structure Let's add a little bit more volume. You know, and once I get this done, I'm gonna have some fun with this gremlin once we finish him. I'm gonna do the old Gremlins 2. I'm gonna make different types of gremlins. I'm gonna have some fun with this. Right? And then I push this back a little bit and see some muscle structure now. But this is gonna land right now when I go to the side. It's gonna start landing better because I took the time to do, in essence, my bones. Okay? So this is my process that I'm going through constantly and looking at things that I want. Okay, so with that said, you can now just see, now I just start working my way down. So I want a little bit of this scapula, right? You need to go look at some images, find some images of a gremlin's back, right? You probably shouldn't see a lot of this. There's going to be some, I'm going to put like a big spiky thing here going down his back, but it's going to make sense because I'm first landing this scapula, so I know now where that mark is because his vertebrae are coming down here, right? And then it's going to meet this, right? So that's, I start landing this stuff, okay? And you can see I hadn't even touched really much the back, and look, the triceps are starting to pop already because that line right there that I made already makes the triceps pop, right? Because the delt should be sitting on top of the pectoralis and your triceps, right? So that's going to make it pop. And then if you want a little extreme, then you hit it with a little bit of a DamStandard, just because if you visually need to make that a little bit more extreme for your eye to catch it a little bit better. And you can see just doing that, look at the bicep. Already starts to boom, already starts to seeing where that bicep is. And then for me, the bicep is just a little bit of stroke in here, right? And then a little bit here. And every muscle has a point where there is volume and then it slowly tapers off. Okay? So you can do a little of this and then slowly taper it off. Okay, so now you're in Dynamesh mode. Let me show you another thing that could be handy for you for laying down muscles, and especially since I'm a big component of non-destructive. Here's another approach that you guys can do when you attack muscles, okay? So I'm gonna pretty much get rid of the biceps here. I'm gonna smooth that back, and then let me just smooth away much of this bicep muscle in here. I'm just gonna, pains me to do this. Sorry, guy. Sorry, Mr. Gremlin. But we need to show another way of having some fun with this, okay? Here's something else that we can do. Right? So we're in Dynamesh mode. I've got no real muscle structure there at all. Okay? I'm going to switch to the curved tube. Okay? What this is going to allow me to do is draw out a tube, right? And you can see what that does. So that's just drawing out a tube. Right? And then I can move the tube. And you see how it's going through the surface? I don't like that. Okay? So another brush is the curved tube snap. Okay? So I'm going to select this. Right? And then this, I can do that. And you can see what that's doing. That's now snapping to the surface, right? So I can tap and make another one and tap. Right? And you can see that's following kind of the sculpt that I have now. Right? It's pretty faceted. Number one, I don't like that. It's making my eye not catch things, right? And number two, it doesn't have what I just said. There should be some volume in the muscle and then slowly tapers at both sides, right? Because then you got to have the connectivity from an origin and insertion points of a muscle, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak this brush a little bit, and I'm going to make this brush my muscle brush, okay? So here's what you all can do. This is for you, maybe some volume and then some other elements to this, okay? So, and I'm going to make the body all one polygroup right now, just so we can take advantage of something else. And what I want to take advantage of is this groups option again in Dynamesh, okay? So here's what's really nice. I'm going to say, okay, in the brush palette, number one, okay, I'm going to open up modifiers, right? So this, everybody, this is a Lisa Needs Braces moment, okay? And look at me, 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 okay? And then, yes, someone already said it, for the users, okay? You pay attention. This is like a step process. I'm showing you how to build your own muscular brush. And you could also do this sculpturally, even not with adding surface. I like this though because it's going to add volume for me. So this modifier right here, this brush modifier, you see it's sitting at 8. I'm going to change this to 20. Boom. What does that do for you? When I do this, you can see how much smoother now the tube is. Okay? That tube's nice and smooth. So if I up this even more, okay, so brush, go to modifiers, let's throw it at 40, right? You can see that's super smooth now, right? So of course, if I did the opposite and change this to 4, then what I'm getting is in essence a cube that's being stretched across the surface. Okay, so I want something relatively smooth. Okay, I'm still in the blocking out phases, so for me, 20 is enough. Okay, that's enough. I don't need to get super smooth. That's plenty for me. Okay, now I've got that solved. I got some smoothness to that thing being stretched across. Right, the next thing I want to do is come into the stroke palette. So the brush palette is controlling this tube-like thing being stretched along a curve. The curve is the apply to surface. So the brush is what is it that's changing up the surface. So i.e. the it is a cylinder that's being stretched, right? So that's a cylinder is actually the brush. The stroke is how's it being applied, okay? So this is it being applied by a rake? Is it being applied by a loop? What are you using? Well, in our case, we're using a curve, right? So curve mode, you can see, is turned on automatically. And this also has a bend and snap ability turned on. I'm going to throw on the lock start and lock end for just giggles here, okay? Giggles. Okay, I don't necessarily need to have that on, but I'm going to show you the difference between having that on and then not having it on, okay? But what really is important is this curve modifiers. Okay, and in this, I'm going to say, let's adjust the size. So now what we have here is when I draw out, I get a tapering tube like this. So you can see I'm getting now a lot closer to muscular form and shape here. Okay, I've got a nice pinching happening on one end, and then it just slowly tapers out. Okay, and then yes, you can use the depth setting to adjust where that sits depth-wise. Absolutely. Great thinking there, Sad. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and say, okay, size, but I'm going to open up this graph again, and you can see we just got a ramp. So this is the beginning of my stroke where it's like bitty bitty, and then wide. So I'm going to say, no. I want another dot here, and I want something more, maybe something more like that. Right? I really want to have a bulge so that when I do this, see, that's starting to look like a muscle form. Okay? And obviously, when I draw this out, right, I'm getting another polygroup. So with this groups option on, when I go reDynamesh, right, this purple is still not connected to him, right? So I can still see select on this and say, oh, I don't like that one, and then delete it. Okay, so a bicep should be bi. So there should be a muscle form there, and then there should be a muscle form there. And then there's your biceps. Okay? If I want more volume in the middle, your draw size is what's controlling that. So I control size that up and say, okay, it's going to connect into there. And then if I tap on the surface, the curve is deleted. And now I put the next one in and then tap on the surface. And then there's your muscle form. Right? And then when I reDynamesh, I still have the ability. I can switch to move topological. Right? And I can adjust this still at any point and time that I want. And in essence, if I really wanted to, I could use ZBrush to create a muscular version that would show kind of like the anatomy of a gremlin, if I really wanted to. Oh, I forgot to turn symmetry on. Right, so let me fix that. So I can go about it this way. Whoops, let me turn this off now. I could either do something like this, and I can resmart sim it, right, if I want. And there you go. Or I could have just done because I'm in Dynamesh, I can have mirrored over the X, and did a mirror and weld. And then now I'm symmetrical. Right? But this, again, by using the move topological, I can really push that bicep so it's really sitting underneath the delt. Right? And then really make sure it's going to the correct part in the arm. Right? Now it looks like he's got kissing lips in the arms. So if I turn that groups off now and re-Dynamesh, right? Now I can just slowly push it, and then here's your biceps. I don't have symmetry on again. Okay, and I can slowly just push that back. And then now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to throw some ClayBuildUp. I want to put a little bit more volume now in there. I want to have his bicep be a little bit. And then there you go. There's his bicep. Right? So, of course, if I do this along the whole body, the muscles are just going to, boom, they're going to pop, and he's going to look muscular. Right? So I don't know how much more I can stress, like landing that bone structure and then going through. So this is the process that I'm doing right now. This is where I'm at in my guy. So it's this one. There you go. So this is where I'm kind of at now. And now I'm going through, and it's key for me. You should touch every part of a body before move on to the next stage, right? So I am still messing around, like, see this muscle right through here? I want to make sure that volume is coming through. Even though, looking at my references, you can see his leg, it's going to get covered up anyways. But if I at least am doing this right, when I go do the detailing, then I'm just doing detailing and that's fun for me, maybe, doing that detailing. And I'm not worried, oh, are my proportions off? Are they wrong? Why does it not look right? Why are my details not landing the way it does in my reference image, right? And then I can really make sure that muscle is really landing there. Maybe I went with a little bit skinnier of a pelvic bone, right? And all these muscles, you go look, right? And see where is that origin insertion points. And if you're taking the extra time to just do something like this, I'm telling you, it's going to change the way you sculpt. Right, so I still need to fix his arms on here, right? So this is where I'm at now. I started putting a couple more details in the head, landing that bone structure with the head, okay? Landing the ears a little bit more so that I can now visually start seeing a gremlin coming to life. Okay, and then Jupiter Webster's asking a great question is, posing then sculpting or sculpt then pose, which one do you think is the best? Listen, if you go watch, say, someone we were just on with Daniel Bell, he's a big guy that likes to pose and then, right, start sculpting on that pose. You definitely we all can get to that point, but that's just a lot of sculpting. That's all. You just got to sculpt a lot, and you can get to that point. And if you got to learn a little bit more about anatomy, how muscles and flows are going to change and how a bone structure is going to change, if you can wrap your head around all that, then a pose is the best way to go if you're just trying to get a final image, right? However, symmetrically, I can really start to change things up. And then I'm symmetry as I change up the arm here, right? Just like this, I want to put a little more length in his arm. And there's not enough volume in his arm here either, right? You can see there, I just don't have enough volume in there, right? So again, by me being in symmetry, I still have the ability, right, to say, okay, I want to change from the elbow, right? And again, we're just drawing this out, and I'm holding the Alt key. And I think my arms, I want to be a little bit more like that. There, that's better. Right? I'm getting that better length, and now I definitely need to go and add my bone structure, make sure that's right, and then now I just start literally adding the muscles, how they would lay on an arm, and that will build up his volume naturally. Right? So you got to get some anatomy books or some kind of reference, and his arms will start bulking up for you. Right? And this, because what's going on detail-wise, there's not a lot of volume in there. It's going to be more of like scaling. But on the shoulder, there's big scales, right? And along the leg, there's big scales. So there's going to be some volume added there. So I want to come through and do this. Okay? So, continuing this idea, I don't like where the mouth, right? He looks like he's just smiling at us, like, eh. Right? So, yeah, West 3D art, yeah, we will definitely go down. I can go down that tangent of Poseable symmetry. But let me first do what I just did again, because Randy was asking how this works. Okay, how this works, Randy, and for everybody else, you hold control, okay? And then you tap where you want your mask to start, and as you pull down, it just keeps growing the mask. And what it's growing the mask based upon is topology. So this is why at our next stream with him, I'm hoping to have a lot more, like, he's done proportionally for sure, and I'm starting now to have details look, and now when I start adding details on him, in my next stream with the Gremlin, we'll be going through how I started actually adding some details. Okay? So, you hold control, right? And then I click where I want it, right? I don't have to keep my hand on control. As long as my pen, right, does not come off my Cintiq or tablet, I can keep adding that control point, right? I can keep growing that mass. I don't always have to keep control down. You can see, look at me, right? It's not there, right? That's it. That's all you have to do. Now, the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying in topology is eventually I'm going to say, let's just say, oh yeah, I'm happy with where this guy's at, okay? I'm going to eventually come down here and use our handy dandy ZRemesher symmetrically, right? And I'm going to show you guys this process of how my next stage is. So for me, that would be stage 3. When I've got, okay, muscles are looking good, bones are looking good, I got some structure, I want to start banging out some cool detailing. For me, that is subdivision levels. Okay? So when you do now a remesh, my topology is way better, right? So if I turn on my line, you can see the flow of my topology is a lot better. This is why for me, I do not stay in Dynamesh forever. I get some of you like to stay in Dynamesh forever. It gives me a little, right? Because I want to take advantage of subdivision levels, and you're going to see that in the next stream. But then also, for what you're saying, look at the mask. It's way better because this mask is based upon topology flow. So because that topology is perfectly expanding nice, I'm getting a nicer and clean mask. So that's also going to be relative and relevant, right? Because right now we're in a Dynamesh mesh, and that topology isn't like, look, it's just like a grid, right? So when I go to mask, you can see this. It's not so perfect, right? So, but that gives me a quick one. Or you guys could just switch to maybe something like a mask lasso, and I can just do this, right? And then there, I got pretty much the mask I want. And then now maybe I can go in and touch it up, not with the curve pen, with the mask pen. Sound effects are cool. And then I blur it a couple times. Like I clicked probably about 10 times there. Whoops. And then now, turning that off, I got that mask. Okay, Randy, does that help? What you're saying? And the Cintiq I'm on is a 24-inch. It's like a 6-year-old Cintiq. I'm so tempted to get an upgraded one. Because this Cintiq's resolution is only 1920 by 1200 at the biggest. And especially like this with streaming, you can see, like I used their 32 once, and I loved it. A lot of people don't like it because it's just so big, but the volume of my 24, because it's old, it's pretty much the size of a 32. But then it's just going to get me so much more working space, and I can throw in more images and make those images bigger to do this. So that's what I'm using. Okay, so now I want to continue my idea here of what I'm doing, and I want to start putting some teeth in here, because I'm going to start laying down some gums. I'm going to start laying down that, making a mouth stack and all this. So I want to put some teeth in here, okay? So what I'm going to do first is lay down maybe a layer of gums so the teeth can sit in that, all right? So I'm just going to quickly just map out a little bit. I can use multiple things here for this. So I'm going to switch to this. Again, we can just quickly switch to anything, right? You guys now know you could just switch to this tube brush, right? And I can lay down quick layer of gum. Right? I like that because I'm gonna want to make the gums a separate subtool. So I'm gonna stick with this tube thing, and I'm gonna say I want a tube to start there and go there. Okay, that's a little too big. I'm gonna make that a lot smaller. Yeah, that's better. Maybe even a little bit smaller. Yeah, and then I'll tweak this a little bit. Just making some gum along here. Okay, and you see how it's moving apart? This is why I like this in the stroke palette. Okay, I like this lock start and lock end. So I can kind of move this, and it's not, right? I'm not pulling it apart now. And I want the gums to kind of go up in there. Okay, I need more gum. It's funny just to say because it sounds like I'm talking about like gum we chew on. Right, so I'm gonna go to the end here, and you see that red line? I can click and drag, and I get more of the gum to come through. Okay, so let me redo that again. Undo. Okay, come in here. See at the end, see my brush is red, see it's blue. Red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Lisa needs braces. Right? So I click on that, red, and then I say, okay, once I see blue in that red line, that allows me to click and continue drawing. That's what that is. That's an indicator telling you, okay, you're engaged with the curve right now, and because I'm at the end of the curve, that red line showing you how it's snapping to the end of the curve, and then I can just click and boom, right? And then there's my more gum. Gum, 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 right? And then that, okay, I'm gonna tap on the surface, so that deletes the curve on the top, and now I need to put some gum on the bottom part of his mouth, so I'm gonna do the same thing here. Okay, you can see this one. No, I don't like that. So I'm gonna switch to the curve tube snaps instead, and it's gonna snap to the surface and give me more gum, and then now I can adjust this how I want. And then also remember this guy, I am also affecting the size, so I'll turn that off for now. So I can do that. And then now I've got some gum. Some gum. Right? Okay. I can tap, get rid of the curves. Okay, and then what these are for me, these are now polygroups. Right? So now I would split those off by my polygroup. And I'm going to rename this the gum. Okay, and then now this is where I could dynamesh it, right? So going back into my dynamesh, right? And I'm going to actually keep the groups option on, right? And because you can see there's this polygroup, and then there's another polygroup, right? So I want to keep that on so that this gum at the bottom, right, is one. And then this is another. And then at any point in time, that handy dandy move, topological. Okay, this gum needs to get pushed back more into the mouth. It's an easy push. And I'm not really concerned. I'm also with the smooth brush here. Okay. I'm going to turn on that topology ability. So right now this is move topological. You can see in the move auto masking, holding down the shift, you can see that's not on. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm keeping my finger on shift and turning that on. So when I go and smooth this gum, right, out, I don't have that. And then I can smooth this gum out. And now only the top's being smooth. And then now I'm back in the move. And then now just reposition this a little bit. Give him a little bit more gum on there. Right, anytime I've gone a little too far, a bridge too far, right? It's easy to just inflate this back up. And then maybe inflate that back up, right? And there we go. We're getting some gum. Gum. Okay, the reason why I'm doing this is I want to start laying some teeth, right? And there, you can see that layering, right? I kind of like this, okay? You want to name them Z as in Z-E-E? I like it. Maybe Z. Canadian way, though. Z. Maybe we can name him Z. Right, and just like that, you can see his mouth has now got a little bit even more volume to it. And again, I like this because it's separate pieces of topology. Now, looking at the gum, let's just go ahead and look at the gum. I'm gonna flatten this a little bit. So I'm gonna H polish this, and I'm gonna throw on the topological for H polish as well, right? And right now, I can just start flattening this a little bit through here. So just quickly giving a nice little flat surface through here, because I need to put some teeth through here, right? So re-dynamesh that. Now, this is where with these gums, maybe I do want to go up a little bit more in resolution for my dynamesh, just so I've got a little bit, because this is a smaller surface than what we had. So this is a point where I do go up in resolution a little bit. And then now let me do the same thing down here. Let me just flatten that gum a little bit through here. And again, I can look at just this and just work on this, flattening this out, right? Whistle while you work. Okay, good enough. Okay, and I want to put some teeth now in his mouth. Okay, so I need to make a toothbrush. Okay, so I'm going to use, okay, a brush of my own to try and create a tooth. All right, so let's go ahead. A tooth, the easiest thing to make a tooth from is a cylinder. All right, I'm going to turn perspective off just so we're looking at this and looking straight at this. Okay, I'm just grabbing the cylinder from the tool palette. I'm going to hit make polymesh, and then this is what we got. All right, his teeth are relatively, to start, they're all, you can see they're all relatively the same, right? There's a little changing here and there, okay, through there, and then they're just different sizes, right? There's just a different size happening there. Yeah, I'm going by, yeah, for as far as the gum question, what am I going by? Yeah, I got to look at this because I can't see his gums in this image and his teeth. This is a better representation of seeing even just the teeth and seeing the gap that has happened between the teeth as well. So I'm laying down that thing of gum because I know to make that realistic, I'm going to need to start adding some puffiness, like where the tooth is sitting right in the skeleton, right? Vic, what was this emoji for? What did I do? What did I do, Vic? You got one of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to dynamesh this guy up. Bam, right? That's too much resolution. Yep. Let's go 64. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, so his gums come to a point, right? So instead of me switching to like a brush, like a sculptural brush like this, and sitting here and then just trying to smooth this down, right? Slowly. Of course, you guys could also come into here and say radial symmetry, and I can just start sculpting this down like this, right? To get the tooth. I prefer, for me, instead of doing something like that, where I'm going like a radial symmetry and I'm saying how many radial points along the Y, okay? I prefer using a deformer. So again, those are in the gizmo. So you click your gizmo, okay? Okay. And then in the gear, okay, Vic, I was just making sure I didn't do something stupid because I awfully do stuff very silly. Let me make sure you guys, okay, my webcam, I'm gonna move this. So I gotta make it so you guys can see this. I'm gonna turn this off for now so you guys can see, because there we go, my webcam's in the way. Okay, so I got this open. So I like to use the taper for something like this, and I can taper that tooth in, right? Great. Then I'm gonna say a deformer, and then I'm gonna say just those points, and then now just, I'm gonna say stretch it out some. Perfect. I'm gonna say accept that, and I can even throw the taper on again. It's just easy uniformly to kind of do this. And then now I'll maybe do a little of this. Don't be shy. Right? And then they go, it's a tooth / tip of a bullet. right? And I can go through, and this is me just being silly going through and doing this. Okay, so this is just a simple bullet, right? I mean, a simple bullet, a simple tooth. It's not anything special or crazy, right? I know I'm gonna go and make some adjustments to the teeth. They all can't be the same, right? They all got to be a little different. I'm even going to I'm gonna make this a little bit taller, okay? And now I want to use this as a mesh, okay? So this is going to be another one of these people, another one. This is a step-by-step process and having an understanding of what I'm trying to do for myself to get to an end result, which my end result is I'm trying to make teeth. That way I can start then blocking in everything else where I'm at with my guy, right? I'm going to turn off the Dynamesh. This model is sitting at 18,000 polygons. That's way too dense. I don't want it that dense. So I'm going to use our handy dandy ZRemesher to get the density down. And this slider is set to 5,000. I'm going to even go all the way to 1,000. Okay? And then just say, let's remesh that and see what I get. And there, I'm around 2,000. That's still pretty dense, honestly. It's not that bad. Okay, you could probably stay there. And if you wanted to go lower, then you start dropping these down to like the point. So I can say 0.5, and this will probably be closer to like 1,000. So I'm gonna say that's pretty good. So I want to turn this into a brush, and this is why I'm remeshing it. I want the topology to be as low as I can, because what my end result's going to be, I'm making a brush here that when I draw out, I'm just gonna be dropping teeth along the way. I'm just gonna be bing, 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 right? And I want to have this ability. So let's just quickly say, okay, this is a tooth that looks like this, okay? So we're gonna say, I need to pick this up now. So I'm gonna say brush, and let me see, sure you guys can see it. Right here, create insert. Right there, create insert mesh brush. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna click that, right? So you can also find that in the brush palette with the create option, create insert. I'm going to say new. So what I have here are inserted teeth now. There you go. But what I want to do is I want to go to the stroke palette and I want to change the way it's being applied. And the way I want it to be applied is along a curve. So just kind of like that muscle form. I click on this, right? Curve mode, and then I click and draw out, and you can see the teeth, the way that they are positioned, they're kind of following that direction. So how you pick up this is going to be important. So as an example, if I now turn the tooth this way, okay, and I say brush, create insert, and I say append now, and I've added it to this one. Now when I draw out my curve, right, see the teeth, they're facing up. Right, so then if I made one now this way, brush, create insert mesh brush, append, right? Now when I draw out, I got the teeth facing the other way. Okay? So the way the origin that you're picking that mesh up is controlling how these are falling on the curve, clearly. Okay? So this is the one that I kind of like. All right, so someone brought this up earlier. Okay, you see that curve that's going through, right? Because again, we're trying to make the teeth for him. So you see that curve. You see the curve's kind of sitting in the middle of my teeth right now. That's not where I want it to be. Okay, I would want the curve to be more towards up here, towards the top. So in the brush palette, I want to change, because the thing I want to change is the tooth, right? And that tooth is our brush. Okay, the curve is how we apply. The tooth is the brush. So I want to go to the brush palette, and I want to change the depth. And you can see the embed value is set to 39. If I change this, let's just change it to 10, and then draw a curve, right? You're going to start changing this value, okay, with how it's falling on here. So this is controlling where the curve is going to start to sit also along the surface, okay? So now when I come back to my gums, okay, and let's just look at only the gums right now. Let's turn everything off, right? I'm going to go with smaller teeth, okay? And then now I say, okay, I want teeth to come along through here, right? And you can see what tooth do I need, right, to come along. So you can see I got to find the right one along those normals, right? So this is all I'm doing, is just drawing on the surface and then letting it be where how it's going to lay. And then each one of these, right, are going to lay differently, right? So for me, I got to find the one that works best for me, right? Going down the right path. So in this one, right, so the best thing would be you can make one like this, append, right? Because when I'm drawing it out, I'm not sure which one is going to be the best one for me, right? And I've got one like this. I don't have one like this, right? And then I'm going to pen that, and then now come back to this and start drawing this out to give me those teeth that I want. And then I can just click and swap between the teeth like this, right? So I can have different variations of the teeth happening there. Okay, so I'm going to use this one for my bottom, right? So there you go, there's that. So you can see that where you start is controlling how the teeth are, right? So from the top gum, I want to start inside and work my way out, right? The direction that you start is also going to play some role. Those are just wonderful, wonderful teeth, right? Right now, the teeth are, there's too many of them. They're too big, right? So what I want to do is in the stroke palette, I want to change this stepping. And I'm going to change this to say something like 2, okay? So when I draw this out, I get that, right? And then the size of them, I need to adjust by the brush size. So this is giving me my teeth now that maybe I want. Okay, so that's getting maybe closer to the size of the tooth that I want. Okay, so I've got stepping of 2. So it's got, yes, Chris, it is. So you got a tooth, then there's no tooth, then a tooth. Then there's no tooth, and then there's a tooth. There's no tooth, and then there's tooth. Okay, so what I want to also change is, right, the teeth, if you're looking at this image, right, the teeth towards the front are obviously larger than the teeth inside his mouth, right? Obviously, you look at my reference images, they didn't really do that much in this one. So I'm gonna go with that. I want to put a little bit of variation in the size. Okay, so I'm gonna come here, right? And remember, we've got a size ability. And I'm gonna say not such a big size ability so that when I'm drawing these out, right, there's just a slight change in the size. Right, so it's slowly. So if I make this a little more extreme, like this, I can do something like that, right? And you can see the teeth change. So I can say something like this. Right, so I can say, let's not work symmetrically. Let's say, okay, I'm going to use that, okay, as a way to look. And you can see how the curve's laying on the surface. This is where your depth is going to come into play, right? So if I start playing with that depth control, right, you see they're sitting differently on the surface now, right? So I can go along any one of these and have what I want, right? And I did not make one looking straight at us as well. Let me make one like this too. I need a straight at us angle as well. Okay, and again, when I do that, it's got a new depth. I can adjust my depth, and then doing that, and then there you go. There's the tooth. This is why I kind of did a flat surface first, so I can kind of follow that. And then there's the teeth. So you don't have to do the tapering, right? Because we can do the tapering later. Okay, and I can say, okay, I still like that stepping of 2. Let me go a little bit bigger, right? And then I'm just gonna lay down some teeth here, right? Okay, and then lay down some teeth again through here, right? And then there's our teeth. And you see that control, the depth, right? I gotta find now the right depth here to make the teeth look like they're sitting on the gums more and more, right? Something like that, right? And then now these are my teeth that I have for my gremlin. Yes, yes. Now he'll start looking a little bit more mean, because you gotta have teeth in there. And again, I could break these off, right? And I'm all right with the not perfect, because if you remember, these are all getting their own polygroups as well, right? So if we turn everything back on, now he doesn't look so much like, hey, look at me, come hug me, yeah, come here, right? And now he's starting to come to life, and I kind of like, I like what's going on with the teeth. But again, at any point in time, people, we can switch to the move topological if we want to. I can even make my brush size 1, and I can move a tooth like this, and then just move one tooth at a time where I want it. Maybe make a little bit variations, so it adds a little more realism to the teeth. Like, I kind of like that some of these teeth are going off in different directions. I think that's what brings him to life a little bit more. And then having, different levels. And I'm just using the move topological to quickly just adjust the teeth kind of how I want them, right? See, like this needs to come way down. This needs to come way down. These teeth don't, these ones shouldn't stick out as much, right? And now there should this one, now there should this one. There's a point where we should be getting different level size of teeth. And then I'm going to be sculpting on these later on. And see, I can still adjust the gum. There. And this is where I would not work in symmetry. Okay, so a question came up about working in Poseable symmetry. So let me show you that real quick, how that actually works, in case you do want to use, say, something like that. Yeah, like that. And of course, you guys can also use your gizmo to do this. I kind of like using the brush for me. It's just I don't have to do any masking, right? I can just move things around. But of course, you can switch to your gizmo, right? And if you hold Control key and tap, so you can tap out every tooth, right? And what I can do is come over here. Now it's not looking like Yoda, right? Now it's coming over here, and I can say auto group. And what ZBrush will do is make each group. So you can see why I wanted to make the topology really low, right? Because look how many teeth, right? So if I do this, because if you guys want to use the gizmo way, you can also just do this as well to move. You can hold Control and tap on the tooth that you want to move. And then because there's different polygroups, ZBrush will mask every other polygroup, but the one that you're playing with, that you just clicked on, right? And so this is another way to work that in. So here, if we turn off line, you can see it better, right? So hold Control in the gizmo mode, tap on the tooth, right? And let me turn this off. And then now I can move this around, right? So again, this is what I'm saying. We were talking about references and what we're doing with references. Oh, I do not like this tooth straight ahead, though. I'm not a fan of that one. Let's make that one go up a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more like that. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Again, I'm marrying myself to this image for the rest of my gremlin, but I'm using this, right, as a guide, right? And it's nothing to say, okay, the front teeth here should have more volume to them, right? In essence, they should be scaled up a little bit more, a little bit bigger. Okay, so I can do that easily. I could switch to an inflate, I'll go with a big brush size. And then in the inflate, again, that handy dandy, woo, topological, baby. And now I can just say, okay, that it needs to be bigger, needs to be bigger, needs to be bigger, 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 bigger there. Let me taper that back down a little bit more, bigger, 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 right? I'm just inflating, and then I'm only inflating one brush one at a time, right? I'm doing this because if you look from a distance, that all starts now coming together, right? And down the road, I might, you know, I think I might print my guy out. I might print this guy. I'd love to do actually. Honestly, this makes me now excited to want to, when I'm done sculpting him, I want to print him life size. Like if he was a real girl. My wife's going to be thrilled. Just thrilled about that decision. But that's why I've got my office space right here. Okay? So you can see all this starts coming into play where right now I'm at the tail end of that second phase of I put already my bony landmarks where I wanted them. I started putting muscular. Now I'm just doing other things, making sure, you know, what's my draft on the face, making sure that angle is correct that I want in there. Throwing these teeth in now really start to bring it to life. Okay, how's the neck transitioning into the head? Is the head even the right size? And then how are the ears? Do I have those at the right angle? Right? And then next stream, I will have all this done. I'll have way more sculpted elements done. Okay? Steve, what Steve are you referring to, Julie? Are you talking about Steve Wang or are you talking about Steve Jubenville? Which one? I'm assuming Steve Wang. Since he worked on Gremlins 2. Yeah, no, I haven't showed him to this. He worked on Gremlins 2. I don't think he worked on Gremlins 1. I think Chris Wallace did most of Gremlins 1. Chris Wallace is actually the original sculptor of Gremlins. And then Steve Wang was on Rick Baker's team for Gremlins 2. I don't know, I'd have to ask Steve. I have no idea, actually, if he's seen this. But I'm not at a point yet where my Gremlin's, like, cool enough to show, I don't think. Hopefully next stream we'll get to cool, because next stream to give you a little synopsis of things that I'm going to start to do that I'll be going through. I want to start now adding, I'm going to start adding major wrinkles like you see here in his belly. So if we go to this image right here, let me make my opacity and let's make this even bigger, right? And let's drop this one down. Let's just look at only this image. Let me regroup all these so this is the only image that I'm really looking at right now. Right? So what I'm going to start doing, seeing all these wrinkle parts in there, I'm going to start getting into this stuff. Right? So you got to find brushes that'll work for that, right? So the standard brush could be good, right? To quickly start doing this. And then I'm going to show you guys just how I was tapering the tubes. I can taper the brush to do that as well. But I'm also going to be showing you guys, which is going to become in handy, is using this gravity. So now when I do this, right, this gravity, you can see it's going down. Right? So by default, his skin's already starting to lay the right way. So this is the stuff, this is just a preview of what we're going to get into a little bit in the next stream. I'm going to start showing you guys how I start doing details like this. How do I start adding those wrinkles in, you know, where I want maybe some wrinkling to go through here. And then they have, this particular one had wrinkling through here and wrinkling through there. And I'm going to push a little bit more there. Change my size, draw a size just to, right? And you can see the wrinkles. They're starting to kind of look more like they're stacking on each other, right? So this is what we're going to start getting to. This is my stage 3 now, is I'm going to start getting into this part of him, is start bringing him more to life and start adding some more detailing and really start to make everything start like landing this stuff, the shoulder, landing this stuff on his eyes, right? Really looking at those big parts. And then I start getting into smaller details and so forth and so on. Looks like a spine in the skin photo. His sternum. Oh, this right here. Through here. Yeah, right there. You're saying right there. Yeah, that's his sternum, right? So I should definitely bring that out a little bit on my guy. So stuff like that is what I'm going to start bringing out, just a slightness of that, right? It shouldn't be very bold, but just that, enough, right? See the light's hitting it? Just enough to read that and understand that there's a bone structure there. In me, I might highlight a little bit of the clavicle a little bit more as I start going, right? So this to me, I don't worry about this stuff yet, what we're talking about right now, until I make sure, is the head right size? Do I have the right size? Are the feet, like my feet are not right. Like look at those, they're not right at all, okay? Before I start worrying about all these other details. But my goal is this next stream that we have, I'll have a lot of these detailing in, okay? So the Poseable symmetry, and then any last minute questions, pose them in there because we're gonna have to end this stream today. So for as far as Poseable symmetry, that is driven by topology, okay? So you gotta have a mesh like this, okay? So this mesh, the topology is exactly the same on the left and right side, all right? So what I mean by that is if I turn back on my lines, the topology, that's flow that's in here, how that's laying, where the vertex live, it's the same on the other side. There's no differences, right? So Poseable symmetry isn't gonna work with something, say, like Dynamesh, okay? So what I do here is tell ZBrush, okay, I want to use Poseable symmetry. So in the ability, I want to be able to tell ZBrush, hey, when I'm transforming and I'm symmetrical, I want to use Poseable, right? So as an example, let's say brush, how about, no, let's do a rotate, okay? And I'm going to switch to the transpose line, and I'm going to come out of symmetry mode. Let's do some funny stuff here. Okay, I'm going to say, all right, let's mask off from there to there. I'm going to say blur that. All right, and let's just say yes. Right? That's a little, I'm doing a little too much density. Let's go with less density. And a rotate. When I pose my guy, I'll show you guys what I'm gonna do for my guy. Because my guy, I'm gonna use actually Z-spheres. It's all going back to that very first one we did. Right, so let's say the arm is raised here. Let's say we'll do a little bit of that. Right, and then I go through and I touch that up a little bit. Yes. Whatever. Okay. Revamp this. Okay. Let's move a leg real fast as well. Okay, and let's I try to treat this transpose line as in essence as a bone. So I kind of position it like a bone, and then I do my rotation. Okay, let's give it a little bit more blur to the mask. Let's say something like that. Okay. Okay, so we got different movements here, right? So when you go to sculpt on something like this, right? This is what you're getting, right? So right now I'm over on the one palm hand, and the other one's just floating in space. So if you come here and you say use Poseable symmetry, ZBrush rereads the mesh, okay, and reanalyzes and sees, oh, the topology is the same on both sides. I'm now going to allow you to sculpt here if you need to, and the hands over there is going to sculpt. If I come down here into the foot, right, you can see I can change this foot up, and it's happening at the bottom as well. But again, you're not going to be able to do this with, say, something like Dynamesh or Sculptris Pro. This has got to be in stage 3 when you've remeshed the mesh and you got things. So technically, a good thing workflow you guys might want to start learning is you kind of take the mesh to a certain spot, remesh it, pose it, and then start sculpting muscular form with Poseable symmetry. You should, like 130,000 polygons should be enough to get where you need to go. Okay, so that's Poseable symmetry. I forgot who asked me about that. Okay? But there you go. Now, the undo history, that's an easy one right here. Delete undo. Right? And then the button next to it is delete older undo. So what you do is you can set your undo where you want it. And then you can delete now from that point off, backwards. So if I hit this, it's going to delete undos 1 through 31. If I delete this, that deletes all of them. So there you go. So that's how you do it. Okay? when you're loading projects and you want to delete your undo history, you can come in here into your preferences undo, and you can turn this on skip loading, and that'll delete all undo, okay, history for every single subtool. All right, so there's your deleting your stuff. Okay, so the deformers, comics legend, the deformers are only a subtool at a time. That's how it's going to work. And you're not going to be able to use it, okay, with Transpose Master. No, it's not going to work. What could work, though, okay, is what I would recommend if you're trying to use the deformers across multiple subtools, I would merge all the subtools together, do your deformer, and then just split them back as parts again, and then you'll have your subtools back again. Now, if you have subdivision levels on each one of those, you need to make sure, here's a great tip. Here's at least it needs braces. If you're going to merge subtools, the subdivision levels have to be the same. Okay, so as an example, this guy, it's not polygon count, it's subdivision. So see, he's sitting on subdivision level 4, and you can see this vest is sitting at 2, right? So if I was to say, okay, let's turn these all on. I want to merge the body with the vest, so I click on this, and then I say, okay, merge down. We say, okay, they're merged now. You see it's one subtool, and our subdivision levels are now only 2. Because ZBrush does is takes whatever the lowest number is, that becomes the new subdivision levels. Digital Plankton, you just joining us now? Well, welcome if you're not, though. Okay, so what you need to do is if you want to merge something and use a format, so let's say now let's use the vest and the backpack. Okay, so let's say the vest is sitting at 3 and the backpack is now sitting at 3. All right? Then you come here and say, all right, let me now merge those down. Boom. They're merged down, and look, you still have 3 subdivision levels. And because those 2 subtools were the same, Anthony Clamp. What up, Colorado? You're darn right I'm a subtool. I'm not just a subtool, I'm a tool. Okay? So those need to be the same number. Okay? So something else you can do, because obviously when you're going to go use a deformer, you can't use a deformer on something like this, right? It's got subdivision levels. So you need to get around that somehow. So this is how I would do that. Okay, so let's say again, let's use the pads this time. They've got 3 levels with the boots. Okay, oops, this has got 3 levels. Okay, so for me, this is what I would do. I would say, all right, let's merge down. They're 1. Let me delete, right, the subdivision levels, or click the freeze. I can freeze these, right, recenter and say, let's recenter this, do this. Now I can click a deformer. I can change my deformer. Whee! Right? Yes. Yes. Right? And then when I unfreeze, ZBrush is looking at whatever's a change is going to be updated, and whatever's not changed is going to be masked out, right? So you can either use the freeze, or in this case, you can just delete the lower, right? And then now do your changes that you want, right? There is a polygon limit to this as well, right? And then now, that looks funny. Now I can just reconstruct, and then there you go. I've got my 3 subdivision levels back. So there you go. Okay, to answer that question. Cool? You missed a lot, Digital Plankton, because we're at the end of the stream. I'm getting ready to end. As far as Mads, you're asking about the transpose lines. This is a great question from you. So you're asking about when you use the transpose line, right? And you do this, right? And then you hit control, right? You hold control and you click on this, and then this will move based upon what your action line set out to. You're asking if that's possible in the gizmo? No. Nope. What all you have in the gizmo is like this, a reset. right? So you can do this, and then that'll just keep resetting it, right? So that's the closest thing you can do, in a way. It's close to what you're asking for, right? So if I reset this, right, and I say do this, and reset, see, it took that angle of the gizmo. But that's not a camera movement. That's a physical movement. The difference is, right, this, right, when I do this, that's just a camera movement. That's actually not a movement to the mesh, right? That's just moving the camera, okay? So what you can do is, if I pull up my guy again, let's not be in solo, I can do this. So it's almost a little bit of the same kind of thing. So this is a camera movement like this, right? So what you do is you're holding the shift key, you click on your document, and then let go of the shift key, and don't take your pen off the tablet, and then there you go. Right? So maybe that'll help you as well. But no, there's no the control thing that you're asking about. But that's the only other thing you can do. Fiber mesh for super streams? Yeah. Yeah, I could probably get into that in further other streams. Maybe even tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know, though. So tomorrow, as you guys, I'm sure you're seeing, I'm streaming again tomorrow. But it's a very special stream because I'm streaming with my man, Solomon Blair. We're going to stream at the same time. Okay, so this is going to be a fun thing that we have never done before. So I'm looking forward to this. This should be really good. Rocking good show. Rocking good time. Right? So if you guys, again, go to ZBrush Live. Okay, and you guys, I'm sure you've been seeing it. It's cycling through it right now. Going here to the calendar. Okay, and then clicking here, week 16, you can see here, we're the ZBrush Clubhouse, ZBrush Live Clubhouse, episode 1. So these are going to be, whenever you guys now see Clubhouse streams, it's going to be more than one Pixologic member streaming. So the first one's going to be Solomon and I tomorrow. We're doing a mashup, which has been popular streams for Solomon. I'm not going to tell you what the topics are. We'll reveal those tomorrow. So this is a great spot for you guys to get reminders about that, which this goes out once a day. But then you guys can also scroll down here and you can add it to your calendars as well. But this is just a great place for you guys to see the whole calendar of all streams that we have going on. All right. Then, of course, for those that are maybe been joining my stream and like, I don't know what the heck this is and what we're doing. Well, we've been playing in ZBrush this whole time. So obviously you guys can get information here at our website, pixologic.com. And right here, there's a Get ZBrush. There's a trial. So you can click here and you guys have ability to get a 30-day trial of ZBrush if you've never used it. So it'll be the most recent version, which is 2020.1.3. So this is a great spot. And then also for those that are, you know what? You've convinced me, Paul. I'm buying. You've got 3 options to purchase ZBrush. You can either do a subscription service. So you can either do a subscription of $39.95 per month or $79.95 every 6 months. Or you can just buy ZBrush straight up, a perpetual license for $895. The beauty about our perpetual license, single licenses, is we have never charged for an upgrade in 20 years so far. So it's almost like a subscription. Okay? So for those that were asking and looking for that, right? And another great place for you guys to go learn is not just our channel here, but you can go right here to Learn ZBrush and go to our free Z Classrooms. So for the person that I brought up Fiber Mesh, you guys can scroll down here, click on here, and you can literally just type in Fiber Mesh right here, and here's all a bunch of videos. So I can just say Fiber Mesh, and here's all the videos in this Z Classroom that have things about Fiber Mesh. Right? So you can do searches here, right? You can do whatever you want here, right? You can do ZRemesher. Might help if I spelled it right. Right? And then anything to do with ZRemesher, there's just ZRemesher, there's ZRemesher's Guidebrush, there's ZRemesher Adapt, and it'll walk you through what each one of these do. So this is another great place for you guys to come and learn anything from as well. Okay, so I will be continuing this on my streams next week. Right now I'm streaming on Fridays, so I'll be continuing this Gremlin next Friday. Tomorrow's going to be completely something else. Please tune in if you're available. It's going to be a fun stream with Colin and I. And then, of course, someone also is bringing up something good. I should have also mentioned this. There's also a ZBrush Core version. Okay, so you can get ZBrush Core as well. So ZBrush Core is either $9.95 per month or $179.95 for the application. It's obviously just a light version of ZBrush, but we do also have a special too. When you guys buy Core, you can actually also upgrade Core to the full version, and we give $100 off on that too when you're doing an upgrade from Core to the full version. Okay, so there you go. I'm streaming again next Friday, the Gremlin, so hopefully I'll have him way further along and have him look way cooler than he does now. And then I'll be going through that process then, what I did, how I got to that point. And again, tomorrow we'll be streaming. And don't forget about the Tuesday streams that we have going on, which are our ZBrush streams with amazing artists that we've teamed up with. This week, past week, was Daniel Bell. Okay, so you want to come here. I can come here to community, ZBrush Live. Okay, let this load. And again, to the calendar here. And the graphics been playing all during this stream as well. Right here on the 19th, we got another ZBrush Masters. So this is all Pacific time, but when you guys log in, it'll show you your time zone, right? And I click on here. This is going to be with Maddie Spencer. Okay, so she's an amazing concept artist and does a lot of beautiful stuff with ZBrush. Okay. So right now, Byron, there is no ZBrush for iPad unless you use Sidecar. Then if you have an Apple. Is there any tutorials for a movie that works on the undo history? The camera is moving very fast. Oh, you're talking about making a movie for undo history? There are no videos. Maybe, at one point maybe I can get to that. So what's moving that is this stuff down here. Okay, so the position, the history of the position is it moving around. This is your orientation as far as the rotational part. So this is, and then this is your sizing of the model. So what I would probably do is you could probably put this all the way to 100, and that keeps the model at the center, right? What up, Trevor? Right? And then all these are, if you don't want a lot of position changing going on, you knock these sliders down some. And then this is your smoothness transitioning. And right now it's set for like every 4 undos, in essence. That's what this slider is. So that's all these controls. And then this is your quality settings and your color and your intensity settings for the videos. Just make sure when you make a video, make sure you say dock and probably large. So it only gives you that. And then your title image is right here. So if you don't want that big title, maybe you do, the movie, because you can write different titles, you can turn that off if you don't want to here. But these are the settings that you want to do. This one probably is your biggest one. That'll make sure the model stays at the center. So when I do an undo history of this guy, right? There's really not much there. Let's see. Does the head have more? Let's see. Oh, the head just has the teeth and everything now. All right. Well, all this is where your starting point is at, and you go to movie, and then because this is recentered, right? And then you come over here and you say forward history. Now it's going to go, and you can see the model is staying at the center. And then what's changing all those orientations and everything is the orientation slider and your position slider. Okay, so your position slider is what's controlling your camera movements of your rotations and zooming. So size and all those, that's what's controlling that. Okay, so now when I stopped it, but when you play this movie back, right? So now if I go to the movie and I say here play movie, you can see what I get. I was sculpting down here. There you go. Right? And then, of course, you want to change any of those settings. Right? You go to the movie and you say, okay, put less of the positioning, right? You could drop all this down. Right? And then now, delete the movie that I had. No, I don't want to save it. And then forward it. And see, there's just, it's a slower movement now. It's happening. So you can change all of that stuff there. Okay? So that's where you got to go. Cool. I'm glad you liked the skin shader stream. Thanks for watching that. Going from ZBrush to like Maya or Moto, the easiest way to do that is an FBX or Go Z. It's just literally one click of the button. You just click this Go Z button if you want one subtool, if you want all subtools, or just the visible. That's it. It'll automatically launch Maya or Moto and send all your textures over and everything. So in the preferences, near the bottom, there's a Go Z preference, and you have to say what path do you want to go to. Like when I press this, Maya, see I only have Maya 2020. And then that one button will do that. Or you just do an export, an FBX will also do it for you. You can embed textures in an FBX. You don't need to use the plugin now. Right here, you guys can now export right out of here. You don't have to use the plugin. So when you guys go here, you can see I have an FBX right here. I have Vermal, STL, PLY, OBJ. I even have a Maya file. You can just use that. An FBX, and you hit save, and then a menu will pop up, and so you can see embed maps. And you can even export the cameras, your layers. You can do a whole bunch of stuff. You can export your polygroups as selection sets for Maya, things like that. Right, Trevor, what are you saying? Can you make that navigation guide be your sculpt and have it update while you sculpt, so it's like a little thumbnail, so you can all. So you're talking about this guy up here? No, this is images. But what's nice about this is you guys can snap to 45-degree angles with this. If you just click and move, you can snap. But no. But I can make a gremlin. I can take my gremlin sculpt now and make that my thing up here. But no, it doesn't update on the fly. So what's going on here, it's not updating this on the fly as you're going. Nope. That's not possible. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Have a delicious rest of your day. Thanks for watching me be wild, wacky, and crazy. Again, I'll be streaming next Friday, my Gremlin. Tomorrow, I'll be streaming a special stream with Solomon Blair, the first ever ZBrush Clubhouse. Get your Saturday ready. That's going to be noon Los Angeles time. So make sure you check your clock. If you guys go to that calendar I told you. Hey, Damien. Damien, thanks for coming, man. Thanks for watching. Man, I got a bunch of friends watching today. How did this happen? It's great to see you, Damien. It's been forever. Okay, back to me saying goodbye and my closeout. So, again, this is Paul Gaboury with the ZBrush Live. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow if you're tuning in. If not, I see you next Friday. This is Paul. I'm out.